Good afternoon, everyone,
Thanks,
and
Susie.
welcome to the FALA Connect Live. Today, we're so happy to see so many of you joining in on this very important webinar, HFRS, and we're going to get to that shortly with Mr. Bernard Hudson from the Agency for Healthcare Administration. Next slide, please. A little bit about us. The Florida Assisted Living Association is Florida's largest and longest established assisted living association. And we provide advocacy, education, and regulatory support to our members for over 30 years. And we formed this association from industry professionals and in the assisted living industry. Next slide, please. Our staff is myself, Alberta, Tammy, Anna, Mary, and Emily. This is our staff. My husband calls us the Super Ladies. So this is the Super Lady team. Next slide. Ways to get involved with the Florida Assisted Living Association is to participate in your local chapters, your support roles, your leadership positions, speaking, and sponsorship opportunities all exist within the chapter. Learn more about it by attending. You can sign up and serve on various committees by linking to www.fala.org/committees. You may also desire to run for a board seat. Elections for open board seats will be held at the conference in 2026. We hope all of you will join us at the FALA annual conference. Next slide, please. The 2026 annual conference and trade show will be held at the JW Marriott on August 2nd through the 5th. And we're hoping that you come because this is going to be one of the most exciting and education and fun-filled conference we ever had. Our theme is Passport to Possibility, Senior Living with a Purpose. There's still plenty of time to join the conference committee or the education committee to help make our 2026 the best year ever. Next. Right now, we are following 3 rules. We're following 59A-36.009 and 59A-37.004 and Chapter 64E12. The first 2 are our ALF and Adult Family Care Home, whereby those rules are being updated. This do not resuscitate rules. We don't find that there will be no negative impact on those rules because it's basically correcting and updating and deleting outstanding language. The next one is 64E12. We also have reviewed 64E12. That's Department of Health, where they're cleaning up that rule as well. We do not see any negative impact on assisted living facilities or adult family care homes as well. So those are the things that are pending right now in terms of the rule and update. We're still waiting, as you know, the Memory Care Services License Bill 1404 was passed, and we're still awaiting signature of the governor on that one. Okay. Now, I'm going to step aside, and we're going to introduce to you Mr. Bernard Hudson, Chief of Health Facility Regulations from the Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration. And Bernard, thank you again for your support and your willingness to speak on this most important webinar before hurricane season. I give to you all Mr. Bernard Hudson.
Great.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Alberta and team. Thank you to FALA for this opportunity to come and present a little bit on the health facility reporting system, which is very important to have this discussion, as Alberta indicated, prior to hurricane season, so that we can make sure that we have everything together and are able to operate in that system prior to being pressed to be able having to use the system. Emily, am I sharing my screen? Is that what I'm doing? Or
yeah, if you have slides, you're welcome to. It should just be on the bottom.
All right. Can everybody see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you, Bernard. We can see it.
Okay. All right. Again, thank you all so much for this opportunity to come and share this information that I believe is going to be of great benefit to you all, and I'll entertain questions at the appropriate time. So the objectives for today is to provide some reminders, first and foremost, about the health facility reporting system. I'm also going to give you some data on 2024. We were extremely blessed last year and did not have to deal with any storms last year. So we're going to have some data from 2024. And I'm going to also discuss some opportunities for improvement that I think will help everyone to be able to put their best foot forward as we go into this next season. So when we begin to think about the Agency for Healthcare Administration and our role in this and our oversight of these, we recently had the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan criteria for assisted living facilities is approved. That form is out there. We're currently working on the one for nursing homes and ICFs, but that one is out there. So it serves as kind of your guide, so to speak. And I want to thank all of you who work together, the different associations that work together to help the agency come to some conclusion on that form. I also want to point out that as we're gearing up, and you may have seen this already in your facilities, that survey staff are going to be conducting inspections around the state for facilities. They're going to be looking at your generators. And I want to say a little bit more about that a little bit later, but they're going to be trying to make sure that you have them and that you have all of the requirements that that should pertain to them as outlined in the rules. So you want to make sure that you're going out, you're checking those. You want to make sure that your staff are aware of them, where they are, how they function, and all those things. I can tell you that when we see this, when we're actually activated and we're in the moment, we've received calls about fuel running out, or generators not functioning properly. So you want to make sure that you check those things prior to the season coming in to make sure that you're ready for those. Also, the agency does some post-incident inspections. And so we have the Bureau of Field Operations that actually comes out and does some of those. We have our Office of Plans and Construction that goes out and takes a look at things from a structural standpoint. We have life safety surveyors that take a look at things as well. So we have agency staff that are going out and after the storm has come through to make sure that things are appropriate for you to continue your services. So this is where the health facility reporting system comes in. And so it says before the event, communication will go out asking providers to update HFRS daily. And so you're all familiar with that. That notice goes out and it's going to tell you starting at this date on this time, you need to go out or go into the system and make sure you update it. I want to pause for a moment because what you want to do now is you want to make sure that you've already gone into the system. You've made sure that the information that's there is as accurate as possible. You want to do a lot of this up front rather than waiting for those notices to come out, because once that notice comes out, you want to make sure that things are updated, you have appropriate people, because what we find is that sometimes you're not looking at this between the seasons, you're not making sure that information is updated. So when that notice goes out, we then get an onslaught of requests because either the administrator has changed or other individuals at the facility has changed, and you need to get this information updated. The ones that you can update, that's fine. You can update them as you see they're needed. But if it's an administrative change, we need to be notified of that as soon as possible, because what ends up happening is that we get those requests, and you get the request. You go out and you try to update, but then you realize you don't have credentials to be able to do that. And we have to go through our process of making sure that administrator is appropriate, has had the background screening and all those things before we can actually say this administrator can have access to the system. So you want to make sure you're verifying that contact information. You want to make sure phone numbers are correct. And you want to keep an eye on that as you go through it and remove old contacts and things like that. And I'll tell you from personal experience, one of the things that I've encountered is having to make call downs myself. One of the things that I've encountered is that once we're making those calls, a lot of times, depending on whether or not there was an evacuation order, the information we have in the system is a number to the building. And that's a problem for us. And you see here, we want to make sure that you've given us cell phone numbers as well, because if you give us a number to the building, we're calling the building and there's no one there because you've had to evacuate for whatever the reason. Now we really don't know what's going on. And so now we have to start to try to track this up the ladder and going up to corporate numbers and looking at applications. And so it really delays our ability to be able to find out information or make contact with the facility to make sure everything is okay. So we want to make sure you have some numbers that will actually reach a person. And so we're asking for cell phone numbers to be added into the system as well. So the updates, as I mentioned, we'll send out a notice and it'll tell you that you need to update the system at a specific date and time. And typically what we've been doing is having the system updated at 10 a.m. When it was really bad, we were doing updates twice a day. We were having 10 a.m. and around 3 p.m. And I had the pleasure, I guess, of having to run roll-up reports that provided this information to Deputy Secretary Kim Smoke, who is down at the State Emergency Operations Center. And so what we're looking at are numbers. How are these numbers changing? And then we're running reports to find out how many facilities have reported. And you're going to see in just a moment when we start to detail the statistics on the storms that we've recently had in 2024, you're going to see how this all comes into play, because we run these reports to find out who hasn't reported, and then we have to take those lists and actually begin to call. And I know this is a frustrating part of the process because we're calling you during a time when you're trying to make preparations or either respond to things that have happened. And so it would be helpful to us, but also helpful to you, because if you update the system, then you come off of our list. You're not someone that we need to call unless you've identified something that raises some red flag that we need to reach out and really get a better understanding of what's going on. So we'll ask that you update things definitely at 10 a.m. and it'll indicate that in the email that you get. And if anything significantly changes. So if something changes about your status, don't wait until the next day at 10 a.m. to update it. You want to update the system when that particular status changes. So we've also added some information here. This isn't specific to assisted living facilities, but it asks about transfer center information for hospitals and things like that, because we work closely with them as well. So the general information that we want to do, and this is in their planning stages, and we call it blue sky. We want to know about flood zones. We want to know about the age of your building and contacts, safety liaison, the specification for your generator. I've had some conversations where I've called out to a facility, and that facility has indicated that, oh, my generator it's gone down, it's not working appropriately. And so then that becomes a red flag for us. That becomes an alarm. And so I get that information to Deputy Secretary Smoke, who then starts to ask me some questions. What kind of generator? And so if that information isn't up to date in our system, then we're going to have some problems, because if the state has to try to provide some kind of assistance to see if they can't get that generator working, or if we don't have the right information and they send people out to help try to see if they can fix it or what have you, and they don't have the correct information, then that generator is enduring more downtime that it didn't have to endure because we didn't have the information. So making sure that information is up to date, making sure your utility and account numbers are up to date, Also, know where your evacuation locations are. Make sure that information is updated in the system as well, so that if you had to evacuate and we weren't able to get in touch with you, we're looking at this information and we may then reach out to this evacuation location to actually find out if you went there. So if that information is stale, if it hasn't been updated in a year or 2 years or what have you, then it causes another lapse in communication or a slowdown in the time to be able to find out what the real status is for the facility. You want to make sure that you have your contracted transportation providers. You want to make sure that information is in the system. And then we want to know about whether or not that you have your own transportation. Are you using a provider? Do you have your own? How much of your own do you have? So if you're trying to then do some type of evacuation, we'll know if some assistance may be needed with that or not at the state level. So when there's an event, we ask you to update some information. So remember, just a moment ago, we talked about Blue Sky. And so during Blue Sky, there is some basic information that should always be kept updated. But during the event, we want specific information about the following. We want to know about your census and available beds. So that helps to know. So if there's a need during an emergency to evacuate someone, something unexpected happens and their building needs to be evacuated, then we kind of get an idea of what areas or what facilities may have the availability to be able to assist with that. We want to know about your evacuation status. And here's something that I can tell you from experience as well in doing these call downs. When you indicate that you've evacuated, sometimes facilities evacuate, you come back, you notice that there is no impact to your building, and you move back into the building and you just kind of continue with business as usual. But to us, because you haven't changed that evacuation status, you haven't indicated that you returned and that is complete. And so you want to make sure you fill in all of that information so that we get a complete picture. And so the more information you give us, I know it takes a few more clicks, but the more information you give us, the less likely it is that we'll need to call you because we don't have a clear picture of what's going on. So we want to know if you're evacuating, want to know where you're going, the time frame, the number of residents, and things like that. And we want to know when you re-enter. We want to have that information as well. If you're not evacuating, again, we want to know if you're able to accept evacuees, and that helps us with that bed availability and your indication that you're able to accept. We also want to know about your utilities and services. So not just if the lights are on, but are you having issues with your water? If you have natural gas, are you having issues with that? Are you having internet issues? And so you're able to indicate all of that information in the system so that it helps us, again, to get a clear picture of what's going on at your facility. Then finally, we want to know about your generator and want to know how much fuel do you have. So as you're updating this system, if your fuel is being depleted, because sometimes, as you know, in the last few that we've had, they've had an extended period of time that power has been out. And I know those utility companies are working very hard to get power restored, especially to our healthcare facilities. But you can be an extended amount of time without power. So it's important that you indicate your fuel situation and also that you start talking about the contracts with your fuel vendors to make sure that you're able to get refueled, get your to be able to get the fuel that you need in order to continue on that generator power as needed. We also want to know about damages, and this really helps us. Again, I keep saying paint the picture because that's what it does for us. We want to know about the damages. What types of damages do you have, and what is the severity of those damages? How bad is it? Is it something where the facility can continue to function, or does this really put your facility out of commission and you're going to have to figure out a different plan? And so indicating those things. And then we have the ability to put in some kind of ad hoc questions. So if we start to see some things that we need more information about that we think is something that we need to know in general, we have the ability to add some of those questions to the list of things that we need updated. So what we've done in the past, we didn't do any this year, but what we've done in the past is we've done drills in order to kind of get you ready to get your mind focused on using the system. And the participation in the past has been around 50%. And we've done those multiple times. And so that kind of shows you, and if you think about the landscape of almost 3,000 assisted living facilities, and if you're talking about a 50% response rate, that's about 1,500. And so it really does put us in a peculiar place with a lot of calls that have to be made, a lot of contact and outreach that has to be done as a result of the low response. And we're going to get into talking about the impacts of that in just a little bit. So we want to make sure that you are having that information updated in the system so that you don't have, so that you don't miss the notification and therefore are unable to respond as you need to, because we do send that out, like I said, via email and things like that. One thing that I want to emphasize is, and we saw this during Hurricanes Helene and Milton, is that you have to remember to continue reporting until notified to do otherwise. Because here's what happens. So as the storm makes landfall and it comes in, everybody's bracing for it. And then we notice that, maybe it was anticipated to come in one area and it may have come in north of that area, south of that area. So then people in either part then believe, because they didn't get a direct impact, that they can just stop reporting. But what happens is, I want you to picture this. If it comes in north of that area and it kind of pauses and it rains and rains and rains and rains, and even though those people south of that did not have the direct impact, now we have the potential for flooding. And this is what happened. That flooding then happens, and where you didn't have a problem, you stop reporting. And now it's flooding in that area, and we know it's flooding, and we know that there should be some impact, but you stop reporting. So now we have to call. And so what we want everybody to do is, until you receive that notification that your area can stop reporting, you should continue to report. And it'll make it easier for you, because then you don't have to try to field phone calls from us. You'll be able to put in your status and you can go about your business. Just incorporate it in as a part of your process. I do want to remind everybody that when you move from building to building, if you're administrator here at one point or whatever your role is, and you go to another building, that the credentials that you have are specific to that building. So it's not where they're not transferable. So you can't use them as you move on. You have to, once you get to that new place, you have to go through that same process of getting access and getting those credentials all over again that are going to be specific for that building. Here's some things that happened during the storm. We called individuals that were listed in the system. I mean, they may have even had cell phone numbers, but because that information wasn't updated, I personally got called or talked with people who said, I'm no longer there. I've been gone, however long they've been gone. And so now we don't have a direct contact for that building. So then we have to kind of try to track that down. We've worked with the association to kind of help with those things as well. But that just kind of helps to further underscore the importance of making sure that this information is up to date. So being prepared. Again, I know that I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, but just making sure that you verify that your contracts are up to date. You want to make sure you confirm that your arrangements are still in place. You want to make sure your evacuation plans are still good to go wherever you're planning to go. Make sure you've had discussions with them and that they're still willing to honor those agreements that you have with them. And then you make changes as you need. Whatever you see that needs to be updated, make those. And I want to also, when we think about, I want to jump down to these transportation plans. You want to make sure that when you've entered into agreements with a transportation provider, you want to kind of get an idea of how many other entities have they entered into agreements with. Because if they've entered into agreements with multiple places, it may impact your ability to evacuate if they're trying to do others as well. So you want to make sure you're looking into those things and making sure you have that clear and have a clear plan of being able to evacuate and have the transportation as needed. So what we've seen in the past is, and these are kind of some tips or some things that you can kind of give some further thought to, is that you have to give serious consideration to widespread prolonged evacuations. I'll tell you, during Helene and Milton, one of the things that we saw is that when evacuations started, that sometimes it was multiple evacuations that needed to happen. And now the place where you plan to go, you plan to evacuate to, they were evacuating as well. And so now we have you're going, if you had a list of 2 or 3, you're going to your second or your third location where you plan to evacuate to, because those first choices and sometimes second choices were having to do the same thing. So in your planning, in your hazard planning, you have to start to give that some thought to make sure that you have a plan just in case where you're planning to go had to evacuate as well. You want to also make sure that you're maintaining communication, ongoing communication. You want your local emergency management office to know what's going on with you, which brings me to another point about making sure that you've had some outreach with those offices prior to any event happening. You want to have conversations in advance. You want to talk with those individuals. You want to establish relationships also in your communities so that once you do have an event, you have resources, you have contacts, you have places that you can actually reach out to and go. Because if you're waiting until the event, everybody's most likely going to be trying to tap into those resources that you're trying to tap into. So you want to have some connections. You want to make sure that your local emergency management knows who you are so that you can actually talk with people and get information as you need and share your statuses as needed as well. And make sure that your agreements that you have, again, going back to like transportation, you want to make sure those agreements are realistic. You want to make sure agreements that you have with your fuel providers are realistic, transportation providers are realistic. If you have anyone who's coming in or need to provide any care to people in your building, you want to make sure you have some agreements with them on how that is supposed to happen. Even if you have to evacuate, how are you handling those things? So you want to take a look at those agreements. Make sure, and it's good to touch base multiple times with the people that you have those agreements with to make sure that everything is still in place. Make sure that they still have the capacity to perform as that agreement has indicated. And then finally, I want to point out about generator use, which I've talked about a little bit before, making sure that staff are aware of how to have that generator function, what they need to do in order to get fuel to it, who they need to contact if there is some issue about the generator. And so you want to have even drills. I would encourage you to do drills throughout the year to make sure that they are familiar with the generator, how to use it, and answer questions should you get them. Because I've had to have conversations with individuals about their generator, and I'll start and I'm looking in the system and I'm kind of telling them what we have in the system, and they were like, no, that's not correct. We don't have that anymore. And it's like, this information is not updated. So now I'm asking them questions that they aren't able to find the answers to right away because they're unfamiliar with the generator. So you want to make sure that staff are familiar on how to use it, how to find out all the information, make sure that information is updated in our system. So I want to go over a little bit of data. We're getting pretty close to the end. I want to go over a little bit of the data. So as you can see, that in 2024, this just kind of gives you an idea of what happened in 2024. So we had Debbie to happen. The total number of facilities impacted was around 2,900, Helene around 2,900, and look at Milton, 4,500 facilities. Now, these are all facilities that were impacted. And so you can see the numbers for evacuations, and that gives you an idea of how those, and that's what I was mentioning about second and third locations, where the initial evacuation, they couldn't go to their first location because even that location was evacuated. We had 442 facilities that evacuated during Hurricane Milton. And so if you look at the numbers on the residents and patients that were evacuated, now, Now, I want you to understand that this isn't just assisted living facilities. These are all of the provider types. We have about 5,000 providers that are in HFRS. So these are for all the provider types. But look at this. For the numbers with Milton, there were 16,000, about 16,000 patients, residents that were evacuated. Look at the numbers on lost power, 1,200. There were 399 that got damaged. There were 14 that indicated they were out of service. And the agency performed a total of 1,094 for all three of those events, 1,094 visits. But look at those calls. So we're talking about outreach that happened. There were over 7,000 calls made in 2024 trying to reach out to providers to be able to determine what their status was. So these numbers, when you look at it, it just kind of shows how what the impacts were from these storms and the response that needed to happen as a result of those impacts. So here's the part that I want to spend a little bit of time on, because I told you initially that when we were asking for the system to be updated, typically that's around 10 a.m. And as your situation changes, but at one point we were doing it at 10 and 3. And we know that's a lot to be able to do that, but we're really trying to determine or provide the information that's needed on the state level for those areas to be able to make the responses that need to be made. And so in the rule, it has a requirement that you utilize a system that's designed by the agency. So this is the health facility reporting system that's in 408.821(4), where you're required to use this system to provide your status and any planning or other things like that. So when we have low response rates, it impacts that ability. Remember, we're funneling this information up. We're sending it up to the state level so that they can make statewide decisions on what resources are needed, where they're needed, the impacts, and things like that. And so if we don't have responses, we're unable to be able to make those, be able to share that information that can help in making those decisions on the state level. So we had not done it in the past, but during Helene and Milton, due to the impacts, we began instituting sanctions as a result of providers who did not respond after the impact. Now, this wasn't for providers who responded at some point or you were late in responding. These were people who we didn't get any responses from you. And so we had to then begin to initiate these sanctions, which in this particular case, it was $500 per instance or per day. Sorry. So those sanctions, here's what they look like. And again, these weren't just assisted living facilities. In this case, this is Helene. You can see that there were 9 adult family care homes that were sanctioned, 19 ALFs, 5 hospitals, 7 nursing homes, and 6 residential treatment facilities for a total of about 46 providers. And so as a result of that, those numbers went down a little bit in Milton because we only had 8 adult family care homes, 14 ALFs, and about 4 residential treatment facilities for a total of 26. So that's all of the information that I had that I wanted to share. I just wanted to, again, emphasize the importance of making sure that you get your information updated in the system, make sure it's as accurate as can be. I do want to mention, I failed to mention, that the agency now has the ability to be able to text notifications. And so in order for us to be able to text that to you, you have to make sure that you have, number one, have a mobile number in the system. And number 2, you want to indicate in the system that you agree to having you agree to having text message or receiving text messages. And so that'll just be another avenue for the agency to be able to do this outreach. So you're not just looking for an email notification, but you're able to get a text message notification as well. So you want to make sure that information is up to date, making sure that you have mobile numbers in the system, the contacts are up to date, that your information regarding your utilities, generator, staff, make sure all that information is up to date. Also taking a look at your agreements, making sure they're still viable, making sure you've given some thought to prolonged power outages, prolonged evacuations, and what your response is going to be for those, and making sure that you are responsive to the contacts made by the agency, either through email, phone call, or text message. Just being responsive to those phone calls can help to avoid you being in a sanctioned situation, but also help the agency to have the information needed to be able to provide support to the state emergency operations center. And again, thank you again for allowing me this opportunity to do this presentation.
Thank you so very much, Bernard. And I just thank you because this is very, very, very important. HFRS reporting, as you all heard Bernard talk about, it put everybody in overtime working. When that HFRS system is not updated accordingly by 10 a.m. or as soon as you know there was a change and not go in there, that put AHCA staff, who is limited as well, because there's a lot of work going on during a hurricane or during a disaster, whatever it may be, a fire, whatever it is. So updating that HFRS system is really, really crucial. And as he said, it's not about when the event is right on top of you. It's about all along. If those things that you need to update, like administrator's name, contact names, all of your first in line to be contacted, you need to make sure that it's updated, because people change jobs, whatever, because it just put them, and they, again, stretched thin too, just like everybody else is stretched thin. And now they got to backtrack and rework or whatever. And one of the pointing things that we're stressing from the association, Florida Assisted Living Association, is having our members make sure you adhere to the direction of AHCA. Because your compliance make it easier so they can put their resources where they're more needed and not hunt you down to see if you're okay. Talk to them. But Bernard, I want you to know that we're echoing as we go through from the Florida Assisted Living Association to our members the importance of reporting. And that 50% participation really stuck me, because I told somebody just the other week that the assisted living industry is the lowest participating, and we got the largest number of assisted living or any other program, but we are not reporting and compliant like we need to. So I'm going to stop right here. Emily, do we have any questions in the chat, please, for Bernard?
We do. Here, let me put my camera on. Somebody asked, where do they register to get the text messages?
So we're going to have an alert that's going to come out we normally do that prior to hurricane season. That's going to come out in a little bit, and it'll have information in there about what you need to do.
Okay. And then we had one other. It says, so the ALF numbers are higher than the other entities. What seems to be the issue?
Well, as Alberta indicated, there are just more ALFs, and there's a higher concentration in South Florida. And so it may be that during that time, you all remember where Helene and Milton were, and if you think about the impacts happening that way, and it's just the lack of response. I mean, I don't have any other. Most of the providers, and as you saw with one of them, it wasn't just ALFs, even though they had a higher number. It was a lot of other providers. And so we're hoping that particular time with doing those sanctions will help people to see we're serious about it. Because this was the first time we had done those sanctions during Helene and Milton. We had not done those before. but we have always had that particular problem. And we were trying to figure out, because as Alberta indicated, what it does is it stretches staff. So I have here in HFR, Health Facility Regulation, I have about 100 staff. And because of the sheer number of volume of phone calls that we've had to make, we've had to actually extend out agency-wide to get assistance, because there's no way we could have made 7,000 calls ourselves because of the lack of response. And so I think it was a little bit new for us to come with the sanctions, and I don't think that maybe they thought we would do it, but hopefully the message has kind of gotten around that, look, this is really serious. We really need this information updated. And the reason why, it's not just because we want you to update a system. It really helps to inform decisions on the state level about how to allocate resources, where recovery is needed, where's the biggest area of impact, and what that impact looks like.
Bernard, let me add to that. It was 2 years ago that Deputy Secretary Kim Smoke, for the pre-hurricane meeting that the agency holds for association executive CEOs and staff. And she said with Secretary that they didn't want to fine, they didn't want to have sanctions. But we, because of our lack of response and reporting, they were kind of forced into it. When I say they, I mean AHCA was kind of forced into, well, now I'm letting y'all know up front. They gave us plenty of warning. If you don't start reporting, we've checked with our attorneys, and we can fine you. We can impose sanctions on you for not reporting. So we need to comply. And I want to stress to everyone on this call, talk to your neighbors. You are members. Tell them that it is important. I can't even stress how important it is to comply. Report by 10 a.m. When AHCA open up an event, just report. And we tell our members from FALA standpoint, report until we tell you to stop. And when we tell you to stop, it's because AHCA has told us that now they can stop. We kind of double tell you. Okay. Emily, any other questions?
Yeah, we had two more come in. Somebody asked, how can I get HFRS access to multiple communities as a corporate leader? You're muted, Bernard.
That is possible as well to get that. Let me get some details on that exactly, and I'll share that back with the group. But it is possible for someone in corporate to be able to get those. And I'm trying to remember now. I apologize. I'm trying to remember if that's given at the facility level or if it's above. I'll have to get some information, but I'll get that back to you. But it is possible.
Emily, whoever asked that question, make sure you email it to Bernard so he can follow up with whoever that was.
Okay. I'll email Bernard their email.
Right.
Okay.
That's correct. And whoever asked the question, did they give a name? Emily?
It's Johnita. So I
believe make sure you give Bernard the name and the email or phone number, whatever you have on that.
Okay. I can do that. And then we had another question come in. It is, does it help for an ALF to have an automatic backup generator, or does having solar panels help with not having, does having solar panels help with not having to have a generator in an ALF? How does AHCA see this? You might want to read that one yourself because that was painful. Sorry.
I'll say this. You need to make sure, I can't tell you what type you need to have. You need to make sure you can meet the requirements of the rule as far as the emergency power. So you need to make sure you take a look at that because we have some places that have generators, and I know they've done some different things, but you need to make sure that whatever your source of alternate power is meets the requirements and rule.
Okay, and we don't have any more questions right this second. Oh, someone said, if for some reason we keep missing the 10 a.m. deadline but still report every day, can we get penalized for that? Yeah.
So what we want you to report. And I don't know if you mean miss the 10 a.m. deadline like you do it at 11 or 12 or 2 or whatever the case may be, those individuals that were penalized or sanctioned were people we did not hear from. So from the moment we had impact, we did not hear from them. And that's even after sending out multiple emails and trying to kind of nudge them along. Or we had some people who wouldn't give us a status unless we called. So they knew they were supposed to report. They didn't report. We called them. They would tell us their status. And then they would do the same thing the next day or the next time we had to do that. And that's just not what that does. Is it causes an unnecessary use of resources. So what we want is for you to report. Now, I would encourage you to do it as timely as you can, because remember, these reports are coming in, and I'll give you an example of what I had to do personally. I was running reports at about 7 in the morning, about 11 o'clock, about 3 o'clock, and then about 6 o'clock. So I was doing all those reports throughout the day, trying to get a status. And so if you happen to miss it directly at 11, that's not a penalty as long as you're going to update the system. But understand, you may get a call if you don't update it by that time, and you don't update it before we start doing outreach. And you don't want to get on the list as one of those, because we can see how many times we've actually had to call you. So you don't want to get on the list as one of those persons that we've had to make multiple calls to either.
Makes sense.
And I just, Bernard, I want to add to that person that asked that question. The best thing to do is just report by 10 a.m. Set your cell phone to ring like 9:30 and whatever, if that's going to help you to remember, because I don't want you all to miss the importance of staff and AHCA's time. It's only but so many people. And a lot of times AHCA reach out to all of the associations and help make calls. So you're getting calls. You don't want to be aggravated, but you're causing yourself to be aggravated, because AHCA's calling, we're calling, and I can speak for me and my team. We call sometimes, what you calling for? I just asked that question. Y'all get kind of testy because you get all these multiple calls. But if you would register at HFRS, you wouldn't even be getting these calls. So think about that and tell your friends, my FALA members, when you get off, tell your friends this. Tell them it's important. Tell them how important it is. I can't even stress it enough.
Okay. And we got a few more ones kind of following up with that, so I'll do that one first. It says sometimes the reporting system can get an overflow, causing us not to be able to report. Can we get a ding for that?
I'm not sure I understand.
I think they're saying that like it crashes sometimes, or like there's too many people on it, so it won't let them submit their. Yeah, she said HFRS, sometimes it crashes.
So hopefully, I'm not saying it won't ever be system issues, but for the most part, the system, it functions pretty well. Now, if we have issues, that's not your fault that we had issues, but you want to make sure that I don't want us to look for a reason not to report. I want us to do as best we can to try to report, try to get that information in. And if you're having some issue, reach out to your respective unit. That would be the assisted living unit. You want to reach out to that unit and let them know, hey, I'm trying to report, but I'm having an issue, because you want to get that information. You want to get that information in, because if there is an issue, if we don't know about it, then it could be a bigger problem that we need to look into.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next question is, how do we identify receiving facilities we can use that will allow evacuees to come in?
Now, is this a question for during an event or prior to an event?
It doesn't specify. Rosemary, do you?
So
prior to.
So that we don't have that kind of information. We don't keep that on an ongoing basis. We only know during an event who's indicated who's able. So that's where you have to start to reach out and make these partnerships. There are also healthcare coalitions that are out there, and hopefully other facilities are participating in these healthcare coalitions where you can start to make these build these relationships and find out where you're able to go if you don't have a sister agency or a corporately related agency, a corporately related facility that you can go to.
And then I believe this is the last one. We had a few more people comment on the technical difficulties. But somebody asked, will there be an HFRS app in the future for cell phones?
I'm going to make a note of that. I actually saw that come up. I'm going to make a note of that. But it is mobile. You can do it mobile now. So it's been customized so that you can use the HFRS system on your phone. But I'll bring that up as a comment.
Okay. I believe that's, can we choose a hospital for evacuation?
So we've seen a lot of different things for evacuations. Our preference is that it would be an agency regulated facility. Now it doesn't have to be. I know that we have some people who have some other places that you have chosen to go. I'm not sure that a hospital will enter into an agreement with you for that, because if you're thinking about impacts in that area, they're going to have a lot of other critical care kind of things that they need to handle. And so I'm not sure that they will enter into an agreement with you for that.
Makes sense. Okay, and now I believe that is all the questions.
Okay, thank you, everyone in attendance today. Thank you. Very, very much needed information. And I think Bernard said during his presentation, some of you already know this, but it's always good to be reminded of the importance. And those of you that didn't know all of the things that Bernard brought to our attention, it's good that you stayed on so you can learn some things. Again, Bernard, thank you so very much for your participation. And if all of us are around, I'm probably going to call on you again next year around this time. So to make sure that that's our goal, is to provide our members as much information as we possibly can to shield them from violations and non-compliance. Again, thank you, Bernard, and thank all of you for your participation.
Can I say one more thing?
You can say as much as you want.
I want to emphasize this because we had this to happen. Please don't choose a shelter to be your evacuation location. We should not, but it happened. I know that sounds like, well, that's common sense, but it happened. Don't choose that. Make sure you make the proper preparation. And as much as you can, try to choose a like facility. Make it be another assisted living facility who's able to accommodate you, because there are things you're going to do in your facility. And if you go to some other location that's not like your facility, you may not have all you need to be able to provide the necessary care and services. So I ask that you give that a lot of thought and get you an option 1, 2, and 3, just in case 1 or 2 falls through. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, that ends our webinar for today, and wow, was it a good one. At this time, we're gonna, Bernard, if you want to hang around, somebody's gonna get a gift card. I'll turn it over to Tam and Emily.
Okay.
Thanks, Alberta.
Thanks.
Great webinar. Thanks, Bernard.
Mm-hmm.
So the winner for today's door prize, which is a $100 Visa gift card, is Pamela, and I'm going to mess up the last name, Waraga from Old Cutler, Old Cutler Retirement Home.
Is she there?
Yeah,
she's still on.
She's already said yay.
Oh, she said yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay,
Pamela,
Pamela.
I'll email you today to confirm the email address. It'll be an e-card, so I'll connect with you today about getting that to you.
Thank you. Congratulations, Pamela.
Surveys.
Thanks
Surveys
again, Bernard.
and then certificates. So stay on the lookout for the survey. And then once you submit the survey, a certificate email will come. Hopefully soon. We'll see.
Thanks, Emily. And everyone, have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye now.
you.
Bye bye.